Hello and welcome to Gareth Icke Tonight. The Gospel of Matthew states every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself will not stand. Well, yeah, that's sort of the point. A group united is more formidable as an opponent, whether that be a football team or the population of a nation. A group at odds with each other spends its time focusing on its own differences, bickering with itself, rather than uniting against the overarching enemy that wants to destroy them both. Now, when you say that out loud and you think about it calmly, it seems blatantly obvious. And yet we allow our true enemy to divide us constantly, daily. For anyone who still hasn't fathomed out who the enemies of the people are, in the not United Kingdom at least, I would point your gaze towards a large limestone structure on the banks of the River Thames, a structure that houses a very large bell. And that's just the Prime Minister. The selected officials that perform within that building openly despise the people of the nation. That's nothing new. I'm not being partisan here. They're all bastards with different coloured ties. It just seems that since the current government came to power last year, the desire to at least pretend you aren't actively ruining everybody's lives has kind of gone out the window. The government hates you and me, and they don't care who knows it. So you would think that at this point, the country would be united against them. You'd think that the people would temporarily put down the fault lines they've allowed to be constructed between them, and for the sake of fighting a gaggle of tyrannical, authoritarian, warmongering Davos firsters, would leave their beef at the door, if only until such time as the war on the people has been repelled. But no, the tribalism is deep-rooted through decades, even centuries of political manipulation carried down through the generations. The tribes are instead blaming each other for the woes of the world, rather than those in the positions of power that are actively making the decisions to bring about those woes. The come-and-go politicians, with notable demonic exceptions like Tony Blair, who would bend over for Satan for free, come into the political sphere, serve their masters, which is not you, by the way, and then exit stage left into the comforts of parliamentary pensions, book deals, and well-paid corporate advisory roles. But the permanent government remains. The civil servants, the political advisors, the real decision makers, they remain in their positions, and they know the Gospel of Matthew only too well. They also know that in the last 5 years in particular, the cat has been allowed to clamber out the bag, and there's been a bit of an awakening of sorts within the consciousness of the masses. You can't stop that. It's too late. It's like trying to put a 5-man tent back into the tiny fabric bag from whence it came. Best of luck with it. But what you can do is redirect it. You can take that understanding that something isn't right, that the world isn't as people once believed it was, that there's a force or a group that seeks to destroy them, and you can turn that belief onto another group within the population rather than those that are actually running the puppet show from above. You can use that to distract the masses from their real enemy, the establishment. They've been doing that since the dawn of time. They've been taking people's eyes off the actions of themselves. Look over here while they're doing this over there. However, in a more sinister play, what you can also do with that division is not just use it to hide what you're doing, but use it to justify it, in the way 9/11 was used to justify anti-terror laws, the Patriot Act, the invasion of Iraq, of Afghanistan. Anger is already at boiling point on the streets of the United Kingdom right now. Anger at mass unfiltered immigration, anger at the injustice of two-tier policing, anger at the blatant destruction of the nation. So throw in a supposed terror attack on British soil, whether they be legitimate terrorism that's been allowed to happen, or even covert operations carried out by the state themselves, and the powder keg will blow. Civil war will erupt all around us, and that's exactly what the plan is. Recent stories about ISIS terrorists planning to attack from Somalia, which by the way is another nation on General Wesley Clark's list of countries the US wanted to invade, is about planting seeds within the public for an impending terrorist attack. An attack and the civil war that would almost certainly follow it would allow the state to impose restrictions that would make COVID lockdowns look like a week at Butlins. It would allow them to bring in emergency legislation, military checkpoints, lockdowns, curfews, mass surveillance, and ultimately the mass digital ID and digital currency rollout that they so desperately want. Terrorists use cash. We need to know who's buying what so we can stop another attack. You can just hear them saying it. The question to ask yourselves, whether you read something or hear something, whether that be from a selected official or a mainstream media, and increasingly online influencer mouthpiece, you need to ask yourself if that piece of information makes you feel angry or helpless or disillusioned or whatever, ask yourself, does the establishment gain from me feeling and acting like this? And if the answer is yes, you've been gaslit. Because the chess moves of the state only have validity and therefore control over our lives if we agree to play along, if we agree to take the bait. So for once, let's put down our tribalistic colours and unite around what we have in common. So to rewrite the Gospel of Matthew, which I'm sure is probably blasphemy, but I'm going to do it anyway. Every kingdom united within itself is brought to civilization, and every city or house united within itself will stand firm. Amen.